Hello, everybody, and welcome to Words for Nerds, a comprehensive, hopefully comprehensive guide to starting and promoting your own podcast. I'm Todd, and this is
Dave.
And we've been doing our main show, the Basement Fodder Podcast, for almost 5 years now.
God, don't
Yeah, I know, has it been that long? Almost 5 years. We also...
I was in my 20s when we started this thing.
We also do a show called The Todd Files. I do that with my co-host who's actually running our table right now.
Yep.
That's an interview-centric show where we interview comic creators, artists. We've had a movie director or two on there. Just anybody who's kind of a professional. We like to call it a college course in making comics.
But it's also very, independent.
Yeah,
independent. I'm not saying we wouldn't talk to people from the bigger things, but usually we're so invested in, independent people. A lot of our friends are independent comic creators.
We have a big presence, thankfully, in the indie community. But
then we have our third show.
And we have our third show, which we've only got to do a few episodes of, but we're hopefully going to get to do more. But it's called It Came From the Queue, where we select a movie from some streaming service, either Netflix or Hulu. The movie, before they did away with star ratings, we used to do under 2 stars.
Yeah, the worst movie.
The worst movie we could find. Then we all get together in a big group, drink, and watch it, and then record a show afterwards talking about it. So that one's a lot of fun. That one's the hardest one to get together because, again, so many people.
We usually
do it in a group.
People in and out on that one.
Yeah, and we try to. Yeah, it's always hard to agree on movies too. So we've only got to do a couple of those, but they're a lot of fun when we get to do them. So I want to start out by talking a little bit about the actual recording of a show.
Okay.
So you guys are podcasters. You know a little bit about recording, and anybody who's a podcaster knows a little bit about recording. But one of the biggest things that we struggled with in the beginning was time management.
Oh, God.
We had no idea how long a show should be and how long it shouldn't be.
Because you're like, okay, how far is it to where it's like, okay, that's the end point, and now I'm just ranting.
Our first was 17 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then I think our next one was 30 minutes long, and we used to have a talk show along with it.
Yeah.
And when we rebooted, we had an actress that died, and we had to reboot because we needed to reboot.
That's what she was saying.
Yeah.
And so what we wound up doing was we wound up making the episodes an hour long each.
Yeah.
Or around an hour.
That's what we do for ours.
This was about an hour.
We did settle on an hour format, which works really well usually. We go over that sometimes, and it just depends.
We stick to it.
We'll get to that part later, but it depends on how long it's been since we recorded, how long the show's going to be.
Yeah.
But segmenting is a thing, too. I don't know, what your kind of nerdery would be. You guys are sci-fi. We struggled a lot in the beginning with how much we should be structured. Because some shows are very structured. They have segments, they go down, and I grew up wanting to be a DJ.
News, sports, that
Well,
type of stuff.
I grew up wanting to be a DJ. So I thought that radio mentality, this time you do this segment, this time you do that segment. But what we figured out really quickly is those shows sucked. Bad. Because we like to rant and rave, and the segmenting doesn't work.
And it seems people like when we rant and rave. So when we're basically okay.
Because if you're listening to laugh,
for 5 minutes, we've got to stop now. But we thought we would because we're like, do we want to be those people that just run at the mouth on a show and stuff?
Yeah.
And we're like, I guess people like that. So, all right, cool. We'll go.
So we figured out after probably about 10 shows that we need to stop trying to do, because we were trying to theme and we were trying to segment and do recurring segments, and it just doesn't work.
And
for us, at least. Now, it can work.
Yeah, it can work. The other thing, too, is, if you put in too many, the thing is we got a little too overzealous with the segments, and we started, putting too many different in there, and it would, go for so long, and then you couldn't find any more stuff for that segment, and it was like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to have to phase that one out now, and so, it got kind of rough.
So we had no idea what we were doing when we first started at all. I learned everything I needed to know from Google.
YouTube, Google.
YouTube and Google.
Yeah.
And friends.
Yeah.
So we use Audacity. It's free. It's simple. Yeah. It's easy to learn. And there's amazing YouTube tutorials on how to record and edit and move things around. And it's relatively reliable.
Yeah.
When we first started out, he was talking before we started recording this, we had the worst microphone in history. It was one of those little, Windows 95 desktop, white cord microphones. Then the first 5 or 6 shows we did sounded like we were in a deep, deep hole.
Yeah, it was really bad. And it was you'd get problems like if me and him were talking and one would go right after the other. If it was too close, it would start
clip.
to clip and
Yeah.
start to sound weird and echoey. And all
That's
that
when I
kind of
learned to
stuff.
edit a lot.
Yeah.
You learn to edit because you need to.
Exactly. Everyone can hear you.
We actually use Cubase right now.
Yeah. I've thought about that one. I don't know. I'm so stuck on Audacity. I know how to use it. It's easy.
Yeah.
Skype for interviews.
Yeah.
Do you guys do any remotes with yours?
We want to learn how to do that, but we haven't done
Yeah,
it
we have
yet.
to do it. We're going to do a specific show. We're going to start this thing at some point called Steak Night, which we used to have years ago to have people come over and watch Buffalo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we want to do it with the Tiny 13 since there are vampires involved, and it makes sense. And we want to do, when we do that, we want to do some remote guests because we have some fans in other areas that are way too far away to come to our house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When we do interviews, we always use Skype because it's easy and it's free. And again, there's a great program called iFree Skype Recorder that because if you use the recording program from Skype, it's kind of pricey and it's very unreliable.
Yeah, it's cut out.
There are other ones out there, but I found the best free one that I could find. And of course, we're all about economy because podcasting makes you no money unless you're Kevin Smith or Adam Carolla or somebody like that. That's the reason we have a dice game at the booth right now because that brings people over. And I'll get to that later. But iFree Skype Recorder is a great program. It's very reliable. Easy to use, very simple. You essentially just turn on your recording software and it at the same time, and it records. And you can also record in Audacity while you're recording through iFree Skype Recorder, which is really great.
Wow.
So, awesome thing. Microphones, we've gone through, I think, 4 generations now of microphones. First microphone's horrible. Second microphones we got were actually not too bad. We found them on eBay for like $15 a piece.
Yeah,
they were your
good,
very
like,
traditional
stuff,
stand mics. And then we had the white ball.
The little snowball one.
It also made by Blue. This one is a Yeti. Blue Yeti.
Those are like the top of the line.
And it was like $130?
Yeah.
$130 Best Buy. It is a fantastic
We were
microphone.
looking at it and we were trying to be like, well, we should get one affordable. And I was like, we have the money now.
Yeah, let's just get a
buy
good one.
because I don't want to have to keep going through mics.
We use an R16.
Because you can record multiple people with different microphones. And then
Oh,
you can-
okay, yeah.
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 With Cubase, you can edit each person individually.
Nice.
That's really awesome. This one is omnidirectional.
Yeah, this one's got a bunch of different...
And it has a
stuff
lot of
in it,
different,
so-
like you can see the settings on the front of it.
Yeah.
You can't see it when you're listening, but
We're actually trying one of the new ones now.
yeah, we're trying the omnidirectional setting. It's supposed to catch from everywhere in a room, especially a big room like this. So we'll see how good the recording ends up sounding.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, so that's basically everything for programs. Now I'll get to like social media, YouTube, all that stuff later on. But basic programs, that's we've stuck with Audacity, and we're going to continue to.
Unless we find something, because we'll talk to other podcasters and be like, what do you use?
God, yeah.
What works? Also, we're cheap and broke.
We are.
So what affordable site programs do you guys use? And usually, I've found from when we talk to them,
Audacity
they'll
is pervasive,
find
yeah.
That, or they'll find one that really works.
That they
and
really
they'll
like, yeah.
stick with it until something basically.
There's one, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's an Apple one, and it records in like 15-second segments that makes it easier to edit later on and kind of move things around. But maybe I try that at some point. So the next thing we want to talk about is content.
Yeah.
So when you're starting out and you're trying to figure out what you want to do in the podcasting world, we endlessly debated what this show was going to be about. So at first, like I said, we tried theming. We did, let's do an episode about werewolf movies. Let's do one about vampire movies. Let's do one about this. They're fun, but it's limiting for us, at least.
And you gotta, if you've already picked out what your time frame is, trying to force an hour conversation about werewolf movies, sometimes you can do it. Sometimes you can't.
Sometimes it's there,
just
sometimes it
depends on
isn't.
what your theme is, what your content is, as far as can you get it into the scope of what your show is. And
so we've figured out the happy medium is that we love comics, movies, and toys. And so all of our stuff ends up being about, in that realm of comic-related things
I'm always
and pop
bringing up
culture.
Tabletop and LARPing.
And tabletop and LARPing because we're big
stuff.
tabletop guys, too. And then also, and this leads into my next thing, social commentary. So, do you want to be topical is a thing.
What if
It depends on your recording schedule too, because when we first started, we would record back-to-back episodes, and then we figured out that doesn't work as well, because if we're talking about topical stuff, it's old news by the time that second episode comes out.
The first show, cool, on point. The second show is just like you're talking about something
everybody's already talked
week.
about this, so if you want to remain topical, you can't do that. So I know I keep knocking this pop over. It's just going to spray everywhere.
It's a Gallagher concert.
And then talking about controversial subjects, this is something that we made a deal, did we
I
not?
just want to make your podcast 4D right.
Well, we made a deal. We said we'll never apologize for anything we say, and we'll never censor ourselves.
On record.
Yeah,
it's on record. We'll never censor ourselves, and we'll never edit anything out of the show.
Yeah.
So it's raw, and it's there's been times that it's gotten us a lot of flack.
Yeah,
but it also helps build loyalty and membership and all those things, listenership. We went from getting 5 or 10 views or 5 or 10 downloads to getting 3,000 or 4,000 a month, sometimes more than that, depending on the month.
Great.
So it helps to kind of be a little raw.
Yeah,
it's going to turn some listeners off, and you're going to be prepared to be offensive. Be prepared for people to say you suck. We don't like what you do.
We don't like
Screw you. We don't like what you do.
It's interesting because one of our favorite shows that we did, that is our least, actually one of our most hated shows, was the show we called God and Godzilla, and we
got religious, and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
that was one of our things. We asked people no politics and no hate speech.
But we
for our talk shows when we were doing them.
This was more just a philosophical sort of conversation.
But from
we just kind of
weird,
got deep
nerdy comic aspect of okay, God in that
totally
sense.
We just got too deep, and we missed our target.
Or we may have done it too early in our beginnings.
But personally, I love that show.
That show was fun.
Yeah.
Haters bring the downloads though sometimes.
No, it is our least.
It's our least downloaded show.
Okay.
By a large margin.
All the other ones are 400 or 500. That one's barely 200. We're just
we had to figure out censorship stuff first. Do you guys? I don't know if you guys do you censor yourselves cursing or anything like that?
We did a talk show before.
Scripted,
so now we don't do a talk show. That was kind of just let our voice actors blow off steam.
Yeah.
But then we just decided we were just going to do the script. But
it's just
we
too
do
much
have,
time.
But you don't censor.
adult
But you don't
language.
censor in your script.
No.
No.
That's
It's
good.
adult language, adult themes. There's definitely violence, sex, everything.
And I think honestly, you will lose some people with that. We figured that out. But I've also we're talking to a lot of people. The shows where they do censor themselves, people say it sounds weird because
it sounds forced sometimes.
Yeah, it's just screaming.
He's not a fan of what we're doing.
Those guys, we don't like them. It's if you're sitting there doing something and listening to these shows, and you hear a spot in your mind where you're that's where I would say motherfucker or some shit like that. And they're shnikes or that mofo. You're
Shucks.
Yes.
You're
Especially us, because if you're around us long enough, you'll figure out we're very foul-mouthed and we don't care.
Yeah.
And so, trying to censor myself is extremely. I've guested on
Especially
other
when you're
shows
ranting.
before where they are censored, and that's extremely difficult for me because I have to not tell dirty jokes or not, curse when I want to curse or say that weird off thing that you probably shouldn't say that would get you kicked off Twitter. But it's a trade-off because it will limit your audience being raw, but you'll get a better audience and a more fun audience and people who actually want to get into your content.
Yeah.
I mean, there's room for everybody though.
Exactly.
You can do any kind of show.
We also are pretty good about since we knew that we were going to do that, we were going to be okay, we're not ever going to censor ourselves. If we're on somebody else's show,
yes,
whatever.
Well, yeah.
But for our show, when we do with our cards and when we're at the table and stuff, we do run a game where kids come up to it and stuff like
to
that.
us a lot. Well, I want to talk about that later. But
Well, when we tell the parents, we're hey, we make sure to constantly it's one of the
Don't
things
let your
that we
children
say.
listen to
Yeah, say the most type. Don't let your children listen to this.
Yeah.
But we at least let them know hey, this is what the show is. So, like, if you as parents would like to listen to it, that's cool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest your 5-year-olds listening to it. But...
Right.
We just say, like, you listen to this first, and
Yeah.
then you decide if you want your kids to listen.
Yeah,
Exactly.
We want them to at
If your
least
kids
know.
watch
Because, hey, we're
Walking
both-
Dead, it's probably okay.
Dave and I are both parents. I have an
Yeah.
11-year-old. He's got an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And we know what kids shouldn't be hearing. It isn't what we
Yeah.
do. Like,
My daughter heard these shows. I
well,
would be
my
like,
daughter hears a lot, but she's old enough to make her
Yeah.
own decision at this point.
Oh, I'd be so
Yeah.
bad.
So let's talk about time and editing a little bit. That's kind of my
yeah.
thing there.
He does that stuff.
Editing, I talked a little bit about it earlier. I really threw a lot of watching YouTube tutorials, like hours on end, trying to figure out how to edit properly. I will tell you, and this is something that he can attest to, I have to listen to myself a lot, and I have to listen to him a lot,
Yeah.
and it will give you a complex. Listening to yourself will give you a complex.
I never listened to any of our shows.
He will not listen to the shows.
I
At all.
narrate, so yeah.
It'll give you a complex.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be like, "Oh, I said too many times. I said like too many times.
And I
said,
won't listen to
you
it.
know, I went,
Yeah.
you know, like
He
I have
was
to- I
so
have to edit
hung
everything
up about
so
it.
I did. I got into my own head and I went crazy, like chopping out tiny pieces of me saying like I would go out, I would go
Yeah.
in and cut out
Or
ums.
I would see when we were recording, he would want to like go to say it, and he'd kind of like,
Yeah,
kind of hold back some. And I won't listen to any of this stuff. Like, I've heard stuff while he's
heard me editing a lot.
but I won't sit down and listen to a whole show because I'm like, if it's going to affect how I just naturally talk, like I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
It's just going to mess me up. So I don't care. I never listen to any of them, and I will never listen to any
Yeah,
of them.
I
You need to at
used
least
to.
download them so you get the downloads.
I used
no.
to listen to every single show.
Dave's known for I will not listen to your podcast.
He's the game. I won't listen to your podcast.
I won't listen.
He only listens to gaming podcasts.
Yeah, a lot of D&D podcasts. But like, we have friends that have podcasts, and they're like, "You should do that." And I was like, "I'm not gonna listen." To that. And they're like,
Some of our best friends, like one of the guys in there, Matt Metzger, he's one of the artists, and he has a great show called Not
Yeah.
Another Origin Story, which I'm a huge fan, and I've been on before. It's a great show, and it's one of my favorite shows. Never heard it, will not listen to it.
nope, never, not gonna happen.
So,
Definitely like our one friend.
yeah. Music is a big thing, too. At first, we didn't have music.
We wanted to.
We wanted to, but we had no idea how to get it or where to find it or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Music.
there's a lot of free music out there. I didn't realize it when we first
Oh,
started,
yeah.
but there's a ton of it. But boy, you really have to dig through it to
Lot
find
of
something good.
Not great stuff. You're
Sometimes
like,
Yeah.
it sounds like porn music.
you can, but
A
like
lot of
the
it does sound
variety
like
of the
porn
really
music.
good stuff is like this, and all the rest of the stuff. You're like, this sounds like bad 8-bit
If you find
music.
an artist you like, that really helps.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of free source music sites out there,
Yeah.
like ones
Yeah, I mean,
especially
within the
for
free source, like,
production.
Find
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
artist that you like within that. it can
I've
help.
got a couple friends that like produce music that like DJs and stuff like that, and I've already like talked to a few of them about like, hey, like,
record
how much
some
would it
special
cost?
music
would
for
it
us?
like to make custom stuff? And if you know them, of course, it's not that much. But even if it's not that long, if you're only doing like 30 seconds or less, it's not terrible.
Yeah, our intro music I think is 15 seconds from start to finish, starting and fading out. A lot of people use long entrance music, which I don't care for.
Yeah.
We love wrestling.
Yeah.
We're wrestler guys, so we think of it in wrestling terms. Like you want memorable, short, easy to remember music.
But you don't want to be like, man, that 20-minute intro really cut into the actual stuff.
Yeah, which is no
Gives you the
fun.
vibe.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's all you want. You just need like that first taste. That's all you need.
We rotate ours out too. Like we'll use
does.
one
He
for a
likes-
while, or we'll take 3 different ones, and one week we'll use this one week use that. So there's a lot of different ones that we use. That's very easy to find. Google is your best friend.
But you're just going to spend so much time digging through
Yeah.
really bad.
So video, it's the age of video,
Yeah.
but we are very behind on video.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of video stuff. And I do a lot of Facebook Live stuff, and I'll make little videos.
I'll
but
pop
we used to
into
do vodcasts once a month for a
Yep.
while. And it's a lot of fun, but basically you're just staring at 2 dudes sitting there talking. So it's not visually interesting.
We
really.
have a YouTube channel.
We do.
And we made
It mostly
one,
just has the shows
Yeah.
uploaded from somewhere
But
else.
we
on
did
there.
do one actual we were going to sit down and do it, and I don't
I
know.
think we did 4 or 5 of them, maybe more. Yeah.
Okay. But it's weird because it's you think listening to your voice will give you a complex. watching a
Staring at
YouTube
yourself.
video, just staring at yourself.
Yeah.
You're just like,
I remember we
Is my shirt
recorded.
right? Is
Yeah,
my
you're
hair
like,
right? Is it like, I
why
don't
do I
know.
wear this like that?
The first one we ever recorded, it was in our old house in the basement. We called it the Basement of Doom.
Yeah.
That's kind of the Basement of Doom Productions, because we had this amazing basement with a lot of action figures and cool stuff, and there was a great backdrop to
Nerd
record
cave,
it.
yeah.
But the lighting was so bad on that. It was the one we did with Casey.
Yeah.
Our friend Casey Anderson does a comic called Waffle Kiss. It's hilarious, great comic. Worst vodcast ever though, because we're all way back from the camera. The lighting sucks.
We all look like we have to play and everything.
Well.
It's like the worst.
And we were wearing masks, and I'll get to the masks later too, because when we. Well, I'll just say that this is a natural place to talk about the masks. So a lot of people ask us about these.
Yeah.
And anybody who's ever been to our table knows about masks. So when we first started, we weren't sure if this was going to suck or not. So
We're like, man.
we
We're
decided
gonna get hate mail.
we decided, like, are we going to use a stage name? Like, what are we going to do? So both of us decided to use our middle names.
Yeah.
Because we don't go by our middle names. Although I did for a very long time.
I did when I was younger.
Yeah. So my first name's Alan, and so I go by Todd on the show. And
Mine's Thomas, and I
Yeah.
go by Dave.
So it just flowed better. Like, Basement Fodder with Alan and Tom didn't sound that great, but Todd and Dave kind of has a nice
And there's a
ring
disconnect,
to it,
which
and
is
there
nice. You get that little bit of distance from it too, because you're just like, if you do happen to hear some people talking shit about your podcast, and they're like, "Man, Todd, and Dave suck." I was like, "Yeah,
those
they
guys do suck.
And they're like, but Alan and Tom are douchebags. I'm like, "Hey, come on now, I'm right here."
So we were thinking, like, because we love superheroes and we love wrestling, what's the best combination of those two things? We thought, like, masks would be cool. Like, because if you go to a show, and this is great, and I'll talk about this later when we talk about promoting.
Another influence too was we have a friend, Dirk Manning,
Yeah.
and he, in some of his pictures for a long while, would always cover up.
Yeah,
like,
he
the
always.
lower half
It's a
too.
gimmick.
And it kind of got us thinking about that too, because we were like, "That's pretty cool. I dig that." You know, I vociferously mock him for it.
Yeah.
all the time.
But we just decided, like, if you were to walk into that room out there and it was all podcasts instead of toys.
Yeah.
And there was 30 tables with guys with microphones, but one table with two guys in masks.
Yep.
Which one are you going to visually look at?
Yeah.
Which one are you going to remember? Like, 14 tables with two guys in a microphone or two guys in colorful, interesting masks.
Yeah.
These things drew people to the table. These things drew people to our Facebook.
I've actually had people like at the thing.
I wanna buy them.
Want to
Yeah.
because they thought they were part of the game, like prizes or
Sometimes
something.
people
like
think
that.
mine is face paint.
Yeah,
Which is interesting.
because of the
You can
way
see
it
how
sits
it
on yours.
sits on my face.
Yeah.
I made these. I make all the ones that we
Yeah.
did, and well, actually, you worked on yours a little bit.
Yeah.
I made all the ones. This is probably my fourth, I think.
Yeah, he goes through them a lot more than I do.
These had two. These are actually. They start off being a full face. I get them at a costuming shop. Actually,
Yeah, they're
they're
kind
like
of the-
plastic with cloth covering.
Oh, okay. Because they didn't look
Yeah.
like they were like paper.
No. Well, the first ones were just straight plastic that we like used foam core. It was awful.
That's bad because if you're gonna wear it forever and you start sweating,
Sweating.
you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but if you look at the back of this one, you can tell that I sweat in it too much.
I mean,
That's character.
yeah, and
It
eventually we're thinking about updating to actually like
Leather
really
masks,
nice
yeah.
leather made
If you
masks.
see the third one here, that's actually my fiance Ariel. She's my co-host on the Todd Files. That's her mask, but she's manning the table out there.
Yeah.
But it's a gimmick. It's something to get you noticed, and something to again obscure your identity if the show sucks. So
We've made one for his daughter,
Yeah.
and we've had two other friends that have basically almost like street team style helped
Yeah.
us out with the show. So we
everybody
made-
has their basement names too.
Yeah.
It's like we have, we're Todd and Dave. My daughter is the original basement baby. Now she's the original basement preteen because she's like 11. And then Ariel is the basement beesh. And our friend Sandy is the den mother of doom.
yeah,
And
then
Vicky is the original basement babe. She was our friend Victoria, which I wish she was here
Yeah.
because she's amazing, but she moved away unfortunately. But she was our first fan.
Yeah.
She was our friend, but she was
But
our first
she
fan.
would go to shows like this with us and help us man the table. But then while we were sitting at the table, she would take whole stacks of cards
Aggressively.
and aggressively, be like,
Listen to
hey,
the
listen to the
show."
show, and like go out, and that definitely helps a lot too. So like, because like if you're doing a podcast, by yourself or like with the co-host and stuff, and it's just you two doing everything, it can get kind of daunting and stuff. But if you can get like friends or family involved that really want to
We've
help,
got a 15-person team.
yeah. So I mean, that is great because then nobody really feels too like I've done everything.
Yeah, and the great thing is, like, the more friends you make, the more people who are going to spread, and the more fans and you're going to have too. Like, doing these shows is a big part of that. Like, we come out to do the shows. The first show we ever did was 4 years ago. Was this one the very first Ohio Toy Comic Show?
Yeah, it was that and free comic book.
Yeah, and we didn't have a gimmick then. Like, we had a couple toys that we were trying to get rid of on the table, and we noticed that nobody cared.
Yeah.
So I came up with a dice game.
Yeah.
So we won a $1 dice game at the booth. You get a prize every time. There's 3 different prize levels. What that does is, A, it pays for the table if we're paying for a table, and B, it gets people to walk over. The only downside is it attracts a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And of course, we talked about that earlier. But I figure a kid gets a prize, the parent takes a card.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a trade-off there. We even have USB drives that have 3 or 4 shows, like one of each show on there.
Yeah, that's actually a really awesome thing
that's a
that we
good idea.
did.
Loot Vault often has sales on these. They had these Game of Thrones USBs. They were like 8 gig flash drives for like 60 cents a piece.
Yeah, you put a couple shows. We have
Exactly.
one of each of the shows on there, and that way you can go. And we don't. It's not necessarily the first show. We pick the
No,
best
I
ones.
picked my favorite
Oh, yeah.
episode
Yeah.
of each show,
Yeah.
basically.
And then you basically hand it out, and I mean, they
That
can
would be
use it for
really
other
good
stuff.
for like technology challenged people because like
Yes.
Gandalf's aunt is like 80 and she's like we've been trying to talk her through like downloading it and she lives in California, so it's like
It's
you can't
tricky.
physically walk her through.
I still get calls from my Bob like, "Hey,
and it's like
how do I do this?"
it's like and we're gonna send you a CD. Do you know how to
Yeah.
play a CD? Yes. Okay, we're gonna send you a
There
CD
you go.
every couple months in the mail. She's
We
like,
thought about
okay.
burning CDs and keeping them on the table, but a lot of people just don't listen to CDs anymore,
Yeah.
especially if they're
the USB drive is
younger.
such a
But
great
USB
idea.
works really
Yeah.
well.
They should be able to handle that.
Yeah, I think the USB drive would be too much for our aunt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She might be like, "Where
The
they
USB
go in
drive.
the- what the-"
Yeah.
So publishing, that's a big
Where
thing
is this on
too.
my iPad?
Yeah.
Publishing is a big thing too. You guys already know about iTunes, obviously, but YouTube is a big thing, of course. We were on our own at first. Podcast Garden is great. We use that to upload the files and distribute and everything. It holds all the content, but they're not really like they don't promote you necessarily. It just sort of exists.
Which
So you promote yourself.
And in the beginning, when we decided we were doing this, we were still like it was a for fun thing. We
Yeah.
hadn't been like we're like whatever for fun. We're
We
still
had no
doing it.
goals.
So when we were shopping for like that type of stuff, we looked at many different ones where there was ones where
Yeah.
it was like you paid, but they promoted you. But we were like, we just want to be able to do as many shows as we want.
We don't care who listens.
Yeah. If you listen, you listen. If you don't, you don't. We don't really care. But then once you hit that, like you get to a certain point, then
It becomes more serious.
you have to actually go back and be like, okay,
We need to build listenership. Like we need to
do we need one that
maintain
promotes?
listenership. Yeah.
Do we need? Yeah. You have to read.
So at some point we did go with a network.
Is it hard to switch?
Well, the
like-
great thing about the network that we're on a great website called digitalnerdage.com. They have a couple different shows. We actually probably produce the most content of anybody on the site because I say Digital Nerdage is full of lazy podcasters because we'll put out a show once a month or whatever. We're much more like, hey, let's just bang them out and get that stuff done. But they're great. It's a good friend of mine out in Michigan named Pat Koala. He's amazing. We decided to go with him for the sole fact that we could also have our own stuff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of networks want exclusivity, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be able to be on more than one network if we wanted the opportunity to do that. And there's a really great network called Pod Bros that a couple friends of ours do, and they have huge listenership in a lot of their shows, and they do ads on their shows. Like they are very professional.
They're very more about
But
like promoting and all that
exclusivity.
stuff. Yeah, that was the.
And we
that was
just
the
we
problem.
weren't ready for that. And, we may actually make the switch at some point because I wouldn't mind the extra listenership and ad revenue would be great.
Yeah.
But it depends on what you want. If you want to do your own thing, find a network that's not going to tie you down. If you want to do network stuff, I enjoy it because we have our Podcast Garden site. We have our own website through WordPress, basementofdoom.wordpress.com. I'm too cheap to pay for the real thing. Eventually, maybe.
When it starts making money, then.
Yeah, when it starts making money. We have YouTube and you have social media, all that stuff, but start out on your own and then see if you want to do a network. There's a lot of advantages, there's some disadvantages too.
He used to co-host on another show with a guy, and that guy was on 10 different networks. Like, I don't even know how he did it, because a lot of them sometimes want the exclusivity, but he found 10 different networks that would let him be on. So, I mean, if you can do that too, like, don't just necessarily settle for one if you don't have to. You can shop around.
How do you find the networks? Because we don't even know that.
We found it through doing shows.
Yeah.
So we started out doing just local shows here. Like we did this first one, and then that kind of led to doing Free Comic Book Day at Pack Rat Comics out in Hilliard, which those guys are amazing, and they've meant so much to us as building our show.
Wait, are you talking about networks, or are you talking about...
No, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So then we made some Indian comic friends that live out in Michigan, and then we met the people who run the network in Michigan.
Well, he did.
I did.
I don't go to Michigan.
So you did once. So we met them that way, but social media, we met a lot of that stuff through social media too. A lot of those different broadcasters and in networks through social media. And then, hell, again, Google podcasting networks.
That's true too. And like some of like there are people that like from networks that will go
and people will reach out to you. We'll
listen to a bunch of like, just I listened to like maybe like 5 or 6 podcasts in the past couple days trying to find new shows to put on their network. Okay. So like, if
it's possible one of them might reach
I
out
mean,
to
we've
us.
had
that's what I'm
other
saying. Word of
podcasts
mouth definitely
reach out
helps.
to us, and they said they wanted to collaborate, but we just didn't know like what the protocol for that is.
Well, I've got that on here,
I've
got that on here for sure.
We went into too, and we were like, how does that work?
Yeah, like what do you do? And
So cross promotion. We'll just
ours
go into
isn't
that.
like a talk show, so it's completely different. So we didn't.
So
know.
we have to actually make ads. Like we actually have one. We have one patron right now who's a friend of ours who decided to support our show after she recorded with us the first time. And we decided to give her business a commercial, and we actually had a commercial with 2 of the characters talking about it.
Oh,
and
that's
I wrapped
cool.
it up with an actual.
So it's like a story commercial.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
For
sense.
your guys'
Ad copy is a
platform,
thing.
yeah. For your guys' platform, that's a beautiful way of doing
So
it.
if
What
we
would
could
you
do-
guys
if
recommend
we could do
for
something
that?
like that would be good. That would be good.
So you can either we've done a few ad-based things. Like this is a lot of times. Part of this, the reason why we're here, is because we get a table for promoting the show. So that's a commercial to us. Like I'll read ad copy, or we'll cut a promo about the show.
Yeah, we'll do promo hype videos, like because we're big into.
But for
wrestling
something
and
like
stuff.
what you guys are doing, the best thing is to make friends with other podcasters and make a commercial.
Yeah.
Like we actually had a commercial that I recorded for other podcasts to play. I haven't used it in a long time.
You can do like a 20-second.
20-second commercial.
That
like
you can just slip into the thing.
Yeah,
like,
throw some music behind it.
between
Talk
a
about
scene
what
or
you're doing.
something.
Like do it like you're promoting a TV show.
Yeah.
Essentially, or play a short clip of some conversation that's in the show.
Yeah, like
so
you guys
people
said
can
with
get a
your
little thing.
characters,
Yeah,
that's definitely something that would work.
that's a good thing to do. But yeah, make friends with other podcasters. Cross promotion is so huge. We're friends with a lot of other podcasters, and
We have
getting
friends
mentions.
that are podcasters. They're all like G.I. Joe podcasts, though.
Yeah, Aaron and stuff.
You never know, because some people are hey, you're into G.I. Joes, but you could also be into space stuff.
Yeah.
Like
And that's the other thing too. Jump onto as many podcasts as you can, like that are willing to like let you on there and stuff. Even if it's just for like a hey, like we're doing like a mini interview type thing.
Right. Yeah.
At least get on there and then like talk about your stuff.
Yeah.
That's another great thing too, because then you have all your listeners, then you just hit all their listeners, and most likely if they're a good podcast and social media, they'll start linking everything, and then their listeners will link and relink and do all that. And it's a great way to...
is what we would call shilling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I'll get to shilling at the end of the show because that's great. So shilling, So cross promotion, I've guested on a ton of different shows.
Yep.
Like my friend's Matt's show out there. I've guested on at least 7 or 8 different shows.
I think I've only guested on a few.
I did Stephanie's show together.
And then we did, what's his face? He came down and...
Troy Copes. Yeah,
So,
he's amazing.
yeah.
Uncommon Geek.
Yep.
Great show. But get on there and talk about yourself. Like sometimes it's hard to promote yourself. It depends on what kind of person you are.
It's really hard for all of us. Like, there's only 2 extroverts in our group, and out of 15.
Yeah.
I am. You wouldn't believe it, but I'm an introverted person. I really am. But when we first started doing this, I was very socially inept in some respects. Like I had very severe social anxiety.
Yeah.
But doing this and getting out there and doing these shows and stuff has almost, I wouldn't say it's cured because I'm still a little freaked out sometimes, but I'm 1,000 times better than I used to be. Like I would never have done this years ago.
It's changed my life too.
Yeah.
Like, in the
It
past
will. It
3
really
years,
will.
just meeting people who are into toys and everything.
It's
it
amazing.
just makes me so much more comfortable.
And that's the thing. Like, there are so many different podcasts that you can do. You can like jump on one where they talk about shows, or you can like guest on them and stuff. Even if it's not necessarily an interview where they're talking about your show, but they're like, oh, hey, this person from this podcast. Like something as small as that, like just being like, you know, oh, we watch anime and we came on, you watched anime videos with us, something like that. But if they mention your podcast at the end and throw up a link and stuff, that is a huge bump to like numbers. You know, I mean, it takes a minute, but usually then you're probably at least, I would say, anywhere from, you could possibly get like a quarter to maybe a half of their listenership to at least give your show a shot.
Yeah, if 20, you know, if 100 people listen to their show, 20 people might listen to yours. Like it is the thing too. And like also with us, we also advertised in comics. Like we had a full page advertising in an independent comic or two, doing these things like doing shows and recording with the person who's doing the show. Like interviews were a big thing for us. We made friends with the independent comic community because we love indie comics. So our good friend Dirk Manning, he's very big in the indie comics community. This guy does Kickstarters that make $100,000. Like he's the guy.
And he shenangos the shit out of
He's
his
got
hair.
very slick hair. But having him on as one of our very earliest guests, it was on the 5th show that we ever did. It quadrupled in the audience like instantaneously because this guy has a following. So having someone with a following is a thing. It's different for the kind of show that you're doing.
Well, for your guys' show, like, you know, if you ever like scripted in like guest characters and stuff like that like they were just there for that episode and stuff, they were like, yeah, maybe like, you know, they.
Well, you listen to a show that's all voice actors too.
I listen to like Critical Role, stuff like that. And they have guest stars, and it's usually they're there for like a session or two and stuff, and then their character goes away. But then,
that's a great idea, scripting in a guest character.
And then, you know, at
somebody
the end, you could be like,
some presence,
oh, hey,
you know,
guest starring this person and their following, and you link it, and they are like, oh, that's sweet. I love that person, and they were in this. Cool. I'm
social media.
Listen to that. Yeah,
that segues perfect into social media. So. If say you have a guest star on there, they've got a large social media presence, they're going to share out that stuff, and those people that like them are going to listen just for them, maybe, but they might like what they hear and come back for the next episode. There's plenty of people that listen to the interview shows that I do, and they come for that one show, but then a lot of them will come right back for the next one because they like the format. So be careful. I will warn on social media, be careful what you say. This is a big thing right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. The one guy from Guardians.
So be careful what you say.
And that was from like 10-some years ago.
Separate your social media accounts. Like we have Facebook specifically for the show. We have Twitter specifically for the show, Instagram, all that stuff. Keep your personal life out of it.
Yeah, we have our regular profiles. And
I had to learn this lesson. He had to like beat this lesson into me because I used to be very emo on that stuff. But like I would get all of my emotions, be angry, be posting stuff on Facebook, and he would be like, "No, stop it."
I'd be like, "You as a person are feeling that stuff, and that's great, but fans don't want to come to the show page and be like, okay."
Everybody's sad. Todd's drunk.
And very like depressing and stuff. Like,
it's a hard lesson to learn, but yeah, take it from me.
You also need that disconnect too, because like if it's just your regular profiles, man, I created a profile, you know, for the Dave, and I will constantly get alerts where it's like new friend, new this, and you're like, you know, because it can get daunting just to deal with your regular like social media stuff, and then you have something where it's constantly growing bigger and bigger, and you're just like, the stupid phone, you know, you don't want to.
It's your best friend and your worst enemy. Social media is especially.
We actually hired somebody to be like our social media person,
and that's a good thing to do too. I mean, sometimes if you want to take it on by yourself, you know, go for it. If you have somebody else that's willing to do it for you, that's great.
Yeah, because it was just getting to be too much.
Yeah.
We got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to kind of wrap it up.
But the one thing is, like, where we said we don't censor ourselves, this is kind of the
one exception to
That's
that
the
rule.
one exception because social media is like shoot now, ask questions later. You say the wrong thing and you don't think about it, immediately that will haunt you forever. And like it's
Forever
judge,
and
jury,
ever,
and
yeah.
executioner on there. They don't care if you typoed, auto-corrected, any of
They
the
don't
wrong
care.
things.
10 years ago, and you're getting fired from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hopefully DC will benefit from this.
So, yeah, big social media thing.
Yeah.
So, one more thing I want to just quickly talk about before we're done, and then we'll do the show. But do conventions like this. This is great.
Or, I mean, any convention.
Any convention you can get into that'll let you set up in there. You know, it's worth the $30 or $40 for a table if you're going to do a table. If you can find a way to monetize, awesome. We found the game, sell things cheaply, make T-shirts, anything. Monetizing is
one
definitely
of our
a thing.
biggest selling things was we had like horror T-shirts. You know what I mean, like it was just big horror people. It was for like $5, and people bought the crap out of it.
Be prepared to lose shows. This is a thing. The audio equipment will fail, and you will lose shows. We've lost so many great shows.
Bad.
My very first episode of the Todd Files I ever recorded was with the great guest Victor Dandridge. He's a good friend of ours. We did an amazing episode, and Audacity spit it and ate it.
Yeah.
Nothing. So I had to re-record it like 2 hours later.
Yeah.
And you'll kick yourself, but eventually you're just going to have to chalk it up to, well, it happens.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged. We talk about Godzilla and God already. I think that's everything. We got like 5 minutes. If you guys have any other questions.
I would say for you guys though, real quick, because you guys you do a story stuff.
Yeah.
Have you guys been to any like Origins or Gen Con type
No,
stuff?
we're gonna start doing
Gaming
that
conventions.
stuff.
Gaming conventions for you guys would probably be a gold
Big
mine
time.
because like it's all people that listen to a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any of those where they seem very heavy into like anime, fantasy, any kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, we were talking
definitely
about going
go.
to next year shortly. We missed this year, but we have one in Hunt Valley next year.
Okay,
And there's a lot of little shows like these that it's easy to get into. You don't have to worry about pressure or anything like that. And then, hey, if anything, if you're not even set up, go put a stack of cards or a flyer on that table.
Yeah, we didn't have a table or anything, but we know Aaron and Sarah.
Yeah.
And
We do have a table at Joe Fest, though.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, and that stuff definitely helps. Like any con that we go, whether it's for fun or to be at and stuff,
We take cards with
Always
us.
drop a stack.
Always
of
drop
cards.
a stack, yeah.
Even if we're just like fans doing stuff, we're always like, hey, I don't know how many times we've slipped cards to like comic creators, like big time comic creators, or like we go to Lexington for the
Lexington Comic Con every year, yeah.
And like as I'm getting my Power Morpher signed by like the Red Ranger, we're like, hey, we have a show. And
When we
talk
met
about it.
Ming Chen and Mike Zapsik from Comic Book Man,
Oh, we love
we were
those
like,
guys.
hey,
Dude,
shake hands, let's take a picture. Here's a card. They were like, oh, I love your logo. Let's share it on Twitter.
Yeah,
Like,
if you ever get to meet them,
They are
tell
great.
them
They will
about
come
your
record.
show,
Yeah.
They might come record on it because they love to go do.
they told
other
us, they're
people's
like, hey, bring
podcasts.
your stuff. Come out. If you're ever in Jersey, come to the show, the store. We'll record a
We
show
went
together.
to the show and there was no one there. Like no one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think
yeah. If it's con season, they're usually gone.
Yeah.
So
Ready to wrap it up?
yeah.
So let's talk about shilling real quick. This is basically what I call shilling. It's an old wrestling term.
I call it dance monkey
It's
dance.
promoting. So at the end of every show, I do a spiel,
Yep.
and I'll modify it slightly for this. But if you enjoyed what you heard today at Words for Nerds, our podcasting panel, you can find us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, at Basement Fodder on Twitter, Todd, Dave, and Dave of Basement of Doom, and of course the Basement Fodder podcast on Facebook. On Instagram, it's at Basement Fodder, and any of those ats, it's all at Basement Fodder. So you can find us on our website, thebasementofdoom.wordpress.com, and our network home of digitalnerdage.com. You can find us on YouTube and iTunes and Spreaker, and basically anywhere you can find a podcast, you'll listen to my dulcet tones. So. As always, from the, what do we call this?
Amphitheater
of Doom. I'm Todd.
I'm Dave.
And until next time, the next panel is wanting to get in.
Later, bitches.